Bare necessity, but simple bare necessity. Bare necessity, but simple bare necessity.
Hey there, it is Bre, and this is my May-June wrap up. If you don't know, anything that is part of a series that I have previously discussed and given a good synopsis for, I'm just going to link you to that synopsis so I don't have to repeat myself quite as much. So that I can focus a little bit more in giving you my thoughts and also save you guys some time if you have watched all of the previous wrap-ups. You're not hearing the same thing every single time. The first thing that I completed was Through the Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Or Moss. Sarah J. Maas? I feel like it's Moss. Sarah J. Maas. I always say this right. Why am I struggling right now? Because it's midnight 30. Duh. This is YA high fantasy, and if you want to see the synopsis of the series, see the link down below. It takes you to my synopsis from the previous book that I did a synopsis for. So the next book that I completed was Dust Jacket Free. It was Clockwork Princess, and this is a reread. I'm rereading the Shadowhunter Chronicles. This, if you don't know, is a YA urban fantasy set, these are set back in the 1800s, whereas the Mortal Instruments is set sooner. So if you want to see my link for the Mortal Instruments, then go see that. This has some kind of like steampunk vibes. It's such a satisfying conclusion to the trilogy. I have no complaints, and it's a 5 out of 5. Alright, so the next book that I completed was a poetry collection, and that is Unfollowing You by Kamal Kapoor. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but I really picked this up because of the cover. It very much intrigued me because it looks like, you know, a very modern, you know, romantic / anti-romantic type of thing, and it's split up into 2 parts, Following You and Unfollowing You. I really enjoyed it. It was published this year, and it was on my list for the year, I believe, but I kind of forgot about that. I honestly would recommend to ignore the Goodreads synopsis because it kind of gives you the idea that this is about something that is definitely not. Some people kind of complained in some ways, and I had to agree after I read the synopsis that, you know, it is kind of like, in some ways, it reflects my feelings in a lot of ways, so for that, I really enjoyed it, but I have to say that the main downside is that it is kind of based around this not official relationship where, and so for that reason it is kind of difficult to enjoy some parts of it because of the fact that you're sitting there and like kind of annoyed with this person. I'm kind of conflicted as to whether I want to change it to a 4 or keep it at a 5 out of 5. So the next book that I read was Clockwork Princess, the graphic novel. So yes, I had just read the physical version, but I honestly had been reading so slow that I needed to pick up my pace and read some fast things. So I read the poetry book, and then I went ahead and read the graphic novel. It's pretty much the same feelings as the book, and pretty much the same feelings as the other graphic novels. They're not quite as good as the books. There are some things that I think weren't well done, you know, in the, not the art, but like how the writing was affected, or how the writing was affected by shortening it. So that said, it's a 4 out of 5 instead of a 5 out of 5. So next I finished another audiobook, and that was A Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas as well. Another Throne of Glass audiobook. I love this one a lot. It's 5 stars for me. It might be my favorite of the series. So many things happen, and you see like the beginnings of the changes in the characters, and it's just like, I just really enjoy that one. So the next book that I completed was Wondersmith by Jessica Townsend. I was very excited to complete this because I had meant to read this the previous year. Get to my sticker. This was another book that I intended to read during the readathon. I also meant to read this during, I threw my sticker. Well, not really a sticker, it's an index card with this piece of tape on it. Anyways, I meant to read this during the Bre Readathon, didn't get to it. Meant to read this during the Bre Readathon, didn't get to it. But I got to it after, so it's fine. This is the second book in a middle grade series. To see the synopsis of the previous book, see the link below. I have to say I really loved the twists in this one. It was very, very twisty, and the world was built a lot, which I very much enjoyed. We saw a lot of changing and fluctuating within the relationships of the characters throughout this book. It kind of was off to a rough start. I was not a fan of the beginning and some of the rules of One Sock and the One Sock Academy. They weren't very realistic. I have the same feelings about Harry Potter in some ways, that some things are just not very realistic in the behavior of the adults and the behavior of the governmental the people who run the place and make the decisions. Like that's not really how it goes. Reread this at some point. I will take a step back and try to punt with that. I will try to take a step back and like check my privilege and see if it's maybe a privilege thing, that maybe because I'm in a country where that would never happen, where people don't treat, like, maybe kids are treated better here in America than I really, give America credit for, and like this is more realistic to people from other countries. Interesting thought. Very intrigued to think about that some more. Oh, this is actually an ebook. It is Murder by the Book by Lauren Elliott. This I picked up. I have a lot of ebooks that I just kind of get for whatever reason. I don't know why. This one was one of those. It was kind of like, ooh, a cozy mystery. It looks like it might be fun, to kind of just either hate read or at the worst hate read, at the best, just kind of be like a hidden gem. Or it could be something that I read, just to have like a nice casual read that's like less stressful, and it kind of fell into that category more so. So it follows Addie Grayborn, who moves into her deceased aunt's house and opens up a bookshop. She is weighed down by her fiance's unsolved murder, kind of puts together how many people she has lost recently. Strange and mysterious things start happening to her, and trouble begins to follow her everywhere she's going. She starts to have concerns that maybe there's more to these losses, and maybe there's an unseen mystery beneath it all. Enjoyable and laid back. It's meant to be cozy and chill, so keep that in mind, that it's not the best and most perfect quality of writing. There definitely are some things that are kind of cringy, some problematic dialogue that isn't very realistic and may not sound perfectly fit to the age of the characters, or the age you feel like the characters are or are led to believe. So it was a 3 out of 5 star, like enjoyable, but not something, of high quality. Next, I finished Future by Ikago Takano, which is part of the Orange series. So it's kind of like a continuation of it. I have many thoughts on this, actually. So here's the thing. To get a synopsis of the previous ones and the series as a whole, go to the link. But otherwise, it's a manga that's kind of got like a YA contemporary vibe with a touch of magical element to it. I liked the fact that we got another addition to the story, but my issues were, I honestly struggled to follow this because of the ordering of it. I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be chronological or it's told from a different perspective. It's told from the perspective of another one of the characters other than Naho, which is who we follow the perspective of in the series. Which it's fine in except for the fact that I feel like it was like trying to go back and like, okay, here's a bunch of random scenes from the past. It kind of felt like at the beginning I thought what was happening. I feel like what was happening was like we were getting these scenes from during when you read the series, in his perspective rather than hers. And then we jump to like the future every once in a while, and it's like about the future, and then like, but also maybe this is like a different dimension. I can't tell if we're in the same dimension, because like it's mentioned throughout the story that maybe there's like different, you know, alternate worlds or dimensions, like a parallel universe type situation. So I can't tell if this is supposed to be like the same dimension that they're in, the same timeline, or maybe the timeline of the other, you know, the timeline in which the future people are, or maybe it's a different timeline altogether, or what. I don't know what's happening throughout the entire thing. I just don't even know what's really happening here. I can't tell you what happened in this thing. And that's sad because it's way shorter than the orange books, because I think it's just the one. I don't think it has multiple volumes in it. I think it's just the one volume. I don't know. It kind of leads you to believe at the end that it's going to continue, but I haven't seen anything else. So. And this is 2012, so. Where it at? Anyways, I actually gave this 2 stars, which I believe that's my first 2-star of the year. To the last book, which is a very interesting and very polarizing book. I wanted to read it closer to when it came out, but I finally did get to it, and I have a lot of feelings, as well as the rest of the booktube community does, and that is Again But Better by Christine Riccio. First of all, I want to say this. If you want me to do a full book talk about this book, please leave a comment down below. Follows Shane, who feels like she's done college wrong, quote unquote, thus far, and is going to study abroad, and uses this kind of like a second chance to do college right. Facing the struggles of getting out of your comfort zone and following your dreams. Some of the things I really enjoyed were the writing style, the character's voice. I love books that have and incorporate journaling and writing, music, references to books and things like that, reader, that kind of thing. So I enjoyed a lot of those elements and aspects. The main thing that I struggle with personally with it is the kind of self-insertion. I don't remember if that's the term that I'm looking for, but it's like when the writer kind of like inserts themselves into the story. Every time I thought of the main character Shane, I saw Christine, because the character's doing something that Christine did within the time frame of Christine's life in which she did it. And you can kind of see so much of Christine's personality within Shane's personality. Some things I think are very different, but some things are very much the same. And it's just like, I understand it, but at the same time, if you really want to, you know, if you really want to come out with a book that is going to really stand on its own, then you need to separate yourself as the writer from your characters more. I feel like I don't know. I can't see Shane. I mean, I didn't even really read Shane throughout the book. I read Christine. She could have done some of the things, like had Shane's music interest be similar to hers, have Shane enjoy writing, And, you know, maybe Shane could be a book nerd because she's enjoys writing. But if you're going to do that, have her look different than you. Have her voice different than yours. Don't have her have a blog named have her have a blog named French Watermelon something. Like, don't have her studying abroad the exact same year you studied abroad. Some of the other things that I know a lot of other people complain about is the gray area cheating, which I didn't have as much of an issue until the second part of the book, especially because at that point I had watched somebody talking about their reading experience, and it kind of stuck with me a little bit more at that point, that it was kind of gray area cheating that was happening. In the first part, it's not as problematic, I feel, because there's not certain things happening and it's not crossing lines. I feel like there's flirting happening, but it's, you know, there's still a definite boundary there. Like, I mean, it's definitely not right, but it's not cheating either. And especially because he kind of, like, it cuts off and it's over and it stops. But in the second part of the book, definitely more so of an issue for me, especially after those conversations, and it kind of, I could not see it anymore, you know? And definitely one of my other main issues is some plot conveniences that I wasn't the hugest fan of. All in all, I give it a 4 out of 5 stars because I connected so much with some elements of the story that I can't help but give it 4 because I loved and enjoyed so much of the book. And it really impacted me in a way that I felt, you know, heard. I felt like I was there and I was me, and it was, you know, a very impactful thing in those ways. However, I can see very easily how if I hadn't had such an emotional connection to the journaling and the reading and the music and the all of the things, then, and that if I wasn't so much like Shane in those ways, then I wouldn't have connected with it nearly as much, and I would have been more put off by some of these other things. Thank you so much for watching and sticking through this kind of a mess of a video. It's like so late. I'm stopping the video at this point because I know that editing me is not going to want to see any more of this, so I'm ending the video now. I love you guys so much, and peace out, bitch scouts.
Bare necessities, but simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean bare necessities. That's why a bear can rest at ease with just the bare necessities of life. Yeah, with just the bare necessities of life.